गलत्तानगण्डं मिलद्भृङ्गखण्डं चलच्चारुशुण्डं जगत्राणशौण्डं लसद्दन्तकाण्डं विपद्भङ्गचण्डं शिवप्रेमपिण्डं भजे वक्रतुण्डम्। अहं निर्विकल्पो निराकाररूपो विभुर्व्याप्य सर्वत्र सर्वेन्द्रियाणां सदा मे समत्वं न मुक्तिर्न बन्धः चिदानन्दरूप शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहं चिदानन्दरूप शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहम्। गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुः साक्षात् परं ब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। ब्रह्मानन्दं परमसुखदं केवलं ज्ञानमूर्तिं द्वन्द्वातीतं गगनसदृशं तत्त्वमस्यादिलक्ष्यम् एकं नित्यं विमलमचलं सर्वधी साक्षिभूतं भावातीतं त्रिगुणरहितं सद्गुरुं तन्नमामि। श्री सद्गुरुनाथ महाराज की जय। जय जय रघुवीर समर्थ। I bow to my Sadguru, Param Pujya, Dr. Shri Krishna Dattatreya Deshmukh. We fondly call him Dr. Kaka. Also bow to Param Pujya Mandatri Gandhi and borrow some words from Samartha Ramdas Swami to address to you as तुम्ही श्रोते जगदीश मूर्ती तेथे माझी व्युत्पत्ती किती बुद्धिहीन अल्पमती सलगी करतो श्रीराम। आप सबको सप्रेम अभिवादन and welcome to you all. Today's topic is 7 stages or steps, whatever you like to call as, for self-realization. Let me begin by saying that all of us, without any exception, has a right to self-realization. Adi Shankaracharya in his Viveka Chudamani says, Durlabham trayave vaitat devanugraha hetukam manushyattvam mumukshatvam mahapurusha samshaya. There are 3 rare things Adi Shankaracharya is saying, Adi Shankaracharya in Vivek Chudamani, at the very beginning of Vivek Chudamani is saying, there are 3 extremely rare things. Which are those? Manushyattvam. I am sure nobody has a doubt here that whether they are a human being or not, right? So we already satisfy the first condition, the criteria of being a human being, Manushyattvam. Mumukshatvam, right? Sunday evening, such an important time of our life. We are sitting here listening to a spiritual discourse that basically shows we also satisfy the second criteria. Manushyattvam, mumukshatvam, mahapurusha samshraya. That is the third one. The mahapurusha samshraya, that can have a lot of connotations. It fundamentally basically means that you have taken the refuge of Sadguru, basically. But at the other spectrum, we can simply say sitting in the company of someone who is there to share this beautiful Vedantic knowledge of self-realization can also be called Mahapurusha Samshraya in its limited sense. So, point I'm trying to make, we satisfy all three criteria. So let's first be assured that yes, we have the right to the topic of today's discussion. So this topic called seven stages of self-realization is obviously an English translation of Dnyanachay Sapta Bhumika. Now I know there are a lot of people who here are Marathi, few of them are Gujaratis who also understand Marathi, because I know a lot of Gujaratis. So I hope some of the words which I'm going to use, and I do not see any non-Indian here, so which makes my life easy, because I'm not going to translate, because I typically refuse to translate some of the words, because English is a handicapped language when it comes to explaining the spiritual concepts, and because those concepts were never there in their culture, they never coined a word for it. So we are not calling names to any language. It's simply just that there are no words. For example, when it comes to modern science, we take their words as is. We don't try to translate all those words, because they coined those words, they coined those terms, because they invented those things. Well, our Rishis invented these things thousands of years back. So we have invented even words for it, we have coined words for it, terms for it. So there are few things you will realize as we progress in the subject. But I just want to make it clear at the beginning that I refuse to translate some of the words. For example, maybe dharma. Dharma is not religion. Atma is not soul. It just doesn't capture the essence of that term. So again, I'm thankful. I'm sure looking at all of you, you understand this basic terminology of Adhyatma, what dharma means, what vairagya means, etc. Maybe I'm happy to see some young generation also here, but I'm sure their parents have educated them enough to know the meaning of some of these terms. With that said, let's turn to our main subject. So this subject, as I was saying, Dnyanachay Sapta Bhumika, is a 7 stages to self-realization, and is a topic from a very lengthy but a very beautiful dialogue between Maharshi Vasishtha and Lord Rama. The book is called as Yoga Vasishtha. I'm sure some of you have at least heard the name of it. Few of you might have even read it. But most of the people don't dare to open that book, because it has around 32 to 36,000 verses depending on what version we are talking about. So just to give you a feel or an idea, double the number of verses Bhagavatam has. It is such a huge book. So typically people don't turn to it, because sheer looking at the size of that, I better not touch it. But it's a beautiful book. It's a dialogue between, as I mentioned, Lord Rama and Maharshi Vasishtha. Now, in the interest of time, I wanted to share, but I may not be able to share the whole story and the background when this dialogue happens. But just to briefly mention it, when Rishi Vishwamitra comes to Raja Dashrath, King Dashrath, to seek his permission to take Lord Rama and Lakshmana with him. We know all the story, right? So at that time, they are discussing this topic, but somebody says, but have you asked Rama himself? And then they call him, Lord Rama comes, and then he's in a different state of mind at that time, what I'm trying to say, without again sharing the whole story. He's suddenly disinterested in life. Lord Rama is suddenly disinterested in life. He's unattached. He doesn't want to do anything. All of us can share to this mental state. Sometimes in our life we also go through that. We feel depressed. all those things, right? So that kind of a mental state he was, and that's when Maharshi Vasishtha and Lord Rama asked him some questions. Obviously, I'm repeatedly saying Lord Rama, that basically means he doesn't need any guidance. But when this kind of things, when we read in this kind of books, it basically means it is for us, not for Lord Rama. He wanted that profound knowledge, the wisdom Maharshi Vasishtha has for the benefit of the world, entire world. So he became a nimitta matra, basically. And then there is a beautiful verse in Yoga Vasishtha which kind of sums up the dialogue, which I'll share with you. Yoga Vasishtha, the crux of that message to Lord Rama is, he says, Rama, antas santyakta sarvasho, vitarago vivasana. What is he saying? Antas santyakta sarvasho, vitarago vivasana, bahihi sarva samacharo, loke vihara ragava. Because whatever the, dispassion, unattachment, vairagya, I will now start using these words now because, as I said, I don't need to struggle with the English language. I will simply say vairagya. Let that vairagya be there, but where? As part of in your heart. But you are a king. You have a role to play. You have a role to play. Loke vihara ragava. Bahi sarva samacharo. Anta santyakta sarvashu. Give up everything. Absolutely. That is the disattachment. That is what we have to learn. This is why the learning has already begun. It is not for Lord Rama, it is for us. Because he had a kingdom to manage. We also have our small kingdom to manage. Our family, our job. That's our kingdom. But what is the knowledge being imparted? You have to absolutely perform all your duties. I see those beautiful verses from Bhagavad Gita written here. Karmanyevadhikaraste. Read the English translation written below. No chance to run away from your duties. As a parent, as a child, as a neighbor, as a boss in the office, anything, you take. These are all the different roles we play, right? He was ready to run away. Who? Arjuna in the first chapter, Arjuna Vishada Yoga. He not only run away, he was ready to take sannyas. I always say this. Lord, in our opinion, Lord Krishna, he should have said, wow, beautiful, Arjuna, I'm really happy with you. You want to take sannyas? Great, let's go together. He didn't say that. No running away. 18 chapters to make him stand up for the war, because that was his duty. That is the kartavya. So no running away from the duty. But how? So that's why there is a tasmat yujyaso. How many times that verse come from Bhagavad Gita? Tasmat yujyaso. But how? You have to fight a war. But nirvairas sarva bhuteshu. Not because you hate somebody. Because it is your duty. They have taken the side of adharma. And as a kshatriya, as a warrior, your job is to protect the society. But let they be your relatives, let they be your brother, let they be your even gurus. You are not killing them. Nainam chinnanti shastrani, etc. That's not a topic of discussion today. But it is exactly what is being shared, preached to Lord Rama. And when I say Lord Rama, again to us, because he doesn't need it anyway. Now with that said, this is the background of the topic. And 7 stages of self-realization is the topic from the book, again from Yoga Vasishtha. This is why I shared the background. Now, self-realization is called Dnyana in Sanskrit. We say Jnana in Hindi, right? But again, I refuse to translate it as knowledge. And I'll explain you why. This is the problem with English as a language. Because I'll explain you why, right? If I say knowledge, and I just stop here, you will look at me, okay, so say something next, because knowledge is not a complete sentence, right? You will say, yeah, but knowledge of what, right? I have to answer that question. And then who is acquiring that knowledge? So who is the knower? So what I'm essentially trying to say, that whether you in English you say knowledge, or even in our general terms we say Dnyana, that word is not complete if I do not answer these two questions. What is the subject and who is the agent? An agent here is the knower. So any knowledge, the word knowledge, or even experience for that matter, it is so hard to explain these concepts initially if you are not well versed with the spiritual concepts. Knowledge or experience. Same with experience. If I say experience, you will say what? Experience of what? And experience to whom? I have to answer these questions. So knowledge. Who is the knower? What is the subject? And the knowledge itself. And then there comes additional things like I acquire a knowledge by reading a book. I acquire a knowledge by watching a YouTube video, for example. Or I acquire a knowledge by listening to a spiritual discourse or anything, by the way. So point is, there are these three things are always involved. Otherwise this thing is not complete. Right? The word knowledge makes sense? Why I am saying all these things? Because when we talk about self-realization, which is called Dnyana, that is not the Dnyan we are talking about. So yeah, it's like getting the first big boulders out of our way. Because the Dnyan we are talking about, this word Dnyan is very much complete in the field of spiritualism. And the sooner we understand that, it is better for our spiritual growth. Because it is also called as Atma Dhyan. It is also called as Parabrahma. It is also called as God. There are different names. It is also called as Kaivalya. In English we are translating it as self-realization. It is self. It is who am I? Because today I think I am a body. But I am not. That's what we are headed towards basically. So, point I am trying to make, so that it will kind of orient all of us towards this subject very well. The next few things we are going to talk about, the 7 stages in the whatever the time allows us to talk about, will be easy to understand. That when I say self-realization, it is obviously loosely translates into knowing the self. But knowing the self, you will say, I know myself. Right? You can object to know, I know myself. Obviously I know about myself. But what I know about myself is not who I am, is the point. And when I say Dnyana, so there is a beautiful verse from Dnyanachay which says, Dnyatru Dneya Vihina Nusadechi Cheka Dnyana. Absolute knowledge. There is no knower and there is no subject to be known. Then what is there? Pure knowledge. Again, I struggle with the word knowledge itself, but unfortunately I have to keep using that word. Let's call it Dnyana. So, Dnyatru Dneya Vihina. Vihina means without. Without the knower. Because when you experience who you are, your true nature, you don't remain separate from it. And that's the knowledge. That's the ultimate stage. That's, in other words, we call it as a moksha. And there are these 7 stages which we'll quickly walk through because we don't have enough time. And I want to make sure we give it enough time and some enough time for question answers at the end. And these are the 7 stages a seeker goes through intentionally or unintentionally, knowingly or unknowingly. Every spiritual seeker, that's the beauty of this topic by the way, whether you know it or not, we fall somewhere in between, somewhere in those stages. And these stages are not like, okay, yesterday, 15th of November, 5 p.m, stage number 1 is complete. That's not how it works. It is more or less where you are. And sometimes you take 5 steps forward and then you come back 2 steps. Progress is always like that. So don't assume that these are very watertight compartments there. No, it's more or less where you are. And the beauty of this subject and studying this subject is you get to know by listening to this description of the stages where I personally stand as a spiritual seeker. I'll give you an example. You go to the airport, right? And you take an elevator. Let's say you park on some 2nd floor and a departure level, like 3rd floor, whatever it is. You take the elevator, you come out. And you come out and you don't know about the airport. So first thing you do, oh, is there any map? Right? Typical experience. And then you see there's a map on the wall. Why? What are you looking? That departure level, where do I go and check in for my flight, etc., etc. But you're also exploring or seeking one more thing. What is that? Anybody can guess? The red dot. It is typically shown as a red dot, right? And the red dot says you are here. Because you need to know your relative location to go to where you want to go, the destination. That is precisely what today's topic is all about. When you start hearing, in your mind, you will understand, oh, here I am. And oh, here is where I have to go. This is where the path leads to. So that's the importance of studying this subject. So let's talk about it. The very first stage of this self-realization is called Shubhecha. Now I'm going to use these words because these come from Yoga Vasishtha. We'll try to loosely translate it in English as far as possible. Shubhecha. Now, Shubhecha basically means Shubhachi Icha. Ab Shubha, again loosely translated as auspicious. Here my problem begins. Because I know, though we use the word auspicious, it doesn't again capture the essence of what I'm trying to essentially say, what Shubha basically means. And I'll tell you what the Shubha really means. So let's first, let me ask you this. Do you have any problem if I keep using the word Shubha rather than auspicious? No, right? Everybody gets the meaning? Perfect, I like that. So let's use Shubha because, again, let's not go there. I don't like these words. So Shubha, because, so what happens, right? In our typical day-to-day life, we think certain things are Shubha and certain things are Ashubha, the opposite of that, right? Now we have our own definitions. For example, we were just coming and I got down from the car and I was about to enter and some cat ran from that side and crossed the path. I'm like, oh my God, Ashubha happened. So बिल्ली ने रास्ता क्रॉस किया. My Sadguru says we are so self-centered that have we ever thought that that cat must be thinking that he crossed my path, I may not find a mouse today to eat. I mean, this is the rudimentary concepts of Shubha we have, right? Because I think I am the center of the world, the entire world revolves around me, and that cat crossed my path, or I know, you got the point. There are many things traditionally we think are not Shubha. Let me give the spiritual definition of Shubha. There is only one thing which is Shubha in this world, which is called Brahma. You understand Brahma? Atma, Brahma Tattva, Nirgun, Nirakar, formless, attributeless, etc. Why? Well, Upanishad says so. Nirmalam, Nishkalam, Shantam. That's a description of that. Nishkalam, Nirmalam. Something that is the most pure. Let's call it a pure. Because Ashubha is an impurity, right? You start reducing the impurity, that subject or object starts getting more and more pure. What is the purest form of pure? Something that is not touched by Maya, Nirmalam, because Maya itself is the Malam. That is the definition of Shubha. Now you will understand what the first stage of Shubhecha basically means. So Shubhecha, with that definition, basically is one fine day in our life, and probably all of us have gone through that, we feel like turning spiritual. I don't know whatever that means. Everybody has their own definition. But something happens. What happens, Somebody says, hey, there is a spiritual discourse in Greater Baltimore Temple. Would you like to come? Somebody like Rajan says that. And then I go. I go for two reasons. One, Rajan is my friend. He shouldn't feel bad if I don't go. Those who smile, I know, probably fall in that category. And second is, let me go figure it out at least. There is no harm in listening, right? Okay, anyway, Sunday evening, fine. Time is also perfect. I can go home and eat my dinner and get ready for Monday morning office. So all these calculations we do. But the beauty is, Probably Rajan asked you to come 5 years ago also, but you found out some excuse not to go. I'm telling you, all of us have gone through these experiences. So imagine all of us, whatever our age is, most of us come from India. Then there is some young generation I see here who are probably born and raised here. But if we talk about our generation, there were temples around us all the time. There are some great people who are sitting here who are, doing that service, giving their time and energy to make this kind of temples function. They were always around us. There were spiritual discourses around us. There were spiritual programs like Kirtan and Pravachan. All these things was around us all the time. You can't give that as an excuse, by the way. And now with today's technology, everything is available at your fingertip, YouTube videos and whatnot. But then there has to come a time when we feel like doing it. Everybody can relate to it, right? Now here is the problem. Some people, when they are at the age of 60, 70, 80, then they feel like, oh no, I should go to temple, I should take darshan, I should listen to bhajan or kirtan, whatever. These are all, by the way, part of Shubhecha. But then the question is, then people realize, once they start studying Bhagavad Gita, studying Upanishads, they realize, oh my God, I wasted my life. I'm at 70-year-old and now I feel like doing it. There are a lot of people who share this with us, the experience. I wish I knew it before. The question arises, by the way, there are few people who are spiritual by nature. When they are born, there is some kid in the house who start listening to bhajan and start going to kirtan. In fact, parents get worried about it. Oh my God, look at this young guy, 10-year-old, he wants to go to kirtan. So what's wrong with that? But parents get worried as if he's going to take sannyas tomorrow. Even if he does, what's wrong with that? But parents do get worried. My point I was trying to make is, there are some people who turn to spiritualism at a very young age, and then there are few people at the age of 60, 70, 80, then they turn. Why this gap? We are talking about Shubhecha. So question is, you understood the Shubha, you understand what it means. Now the question is, how does it happen? Some friends says, come, there is a program in the temple, but you don't go. But one day you feel like going. Bhagavad Gita has answered that question. Purvabhyasena tenaiva riyate yavashopi saha jidnyasurabhi yogasya shabda brahmati vardate. Purvabhyasena, which basically means our purva karma, our past karma. It could be from this life, most of the time it is from our past life. This is why we don't know about it. And this is why it is called as adrushta in Vedanta Shastra. It is adrushta because it is not visible. You don't know that, oh, these are the kind of all karmas I have done. Out of that, the package I have gotten with me is called as prarabdha. The rest of the whole heap of karma is called as sanchita. But we don't know that. And Lord Krishna declares in Bhagavad Gita, Purvabhyasena. So that answers the question why somebody doesn't turn to spiritualism till age 60, because yesterday I gave that example, they are repaying the loan they have taken. Like I deposit some money in the bank account every day or every month, and at the end of the year I go and I expected certain balance in my account, and the bank manager says, no, you have zero balance. Where did my money go? He said, did you forget you have taken a loan? Mortgage? So this is the mortgage from our past life. And all these years of your life, you are paying that loan. And when the loan got over, all of us have done some punya karma also in our past life. By the way, this is why we are born as a human being. Another topic, but in the interest of time, I will not spend too much time on that. But because we have done other punya karma also, now those karma have become right to give us the fruit, and the fruit of those punya karma is our now tendency turn towards spiritualism, and that is called Shubhecha. Isn't that a first step? All of us have either going through or have gone through few years back in our life. Then what happens? Then comes the next stage, that is called Suvicharana. Suvicharana again loosely translates into actually taking an action. So I feel like I go there, I listen to some discourse, or somebody happens to give me a book of whatever, Bhagavad Gita or Upanishad or Dnyanachay or Das or whatever other, we are rich tradition of spiritual books, right? You open one of those grantha and then you suddenly start developing interest. It's like, wow, I'm fascinated. I never knew that this is so much full of wisdom, which I can, even today's modern world in the 21st century, I can implement those spiritual methods. So you basically start seeking those. Then the Suvicharana, which is the second one we are talking about, is loosely translated, as I mentioned. You start changing your behavior. You start attending this kind of discourses. You start attending kirtans. You start reading books. You start seeking and exploring all the spiritual things which you think will make you progress on that path. And this is a kind of a stage where there is a lot of confusion, and which is but natural, because the field of spiritualism is full of different sampradaya, different ways of worshipping God, different ways of meditating, different ways of chanting the name, different, even Hindu dharma, we know there are gods also, there are so many gods, and then somebody tells something, somebody tells another thing, and there's a whole lot of confusion. And we are trying to understand, what should I do? What is the best way to move forward? It is this stage. Essentially, we are seeking Sadguru. But at the same time, we are also trying to change your behavior. Because so far it was just an intellectual exercise for me. In this stage, I am trying to change my action now. Suvicharana. That's called the second stage. So change of action, that is the main thing here. And like Tukaram Maharaj says, Indriyansa Jaya, Vasanensa Kshaya. Sankalpahivari naye mana. So beautiful verse from Tukaram Gatha. Indriyansa Jaya, it basically means control of your senses, 5 senses. Because so far my life was, how was I spending my life? Oh, I used to watch anything that comes my way. I used to read anything that comes my way. But now you realize that no, I'm spending too much time on YouTube. I'm spending too much time on WhatsApp. I'm spending too much time watching Netflix. I'm using today's word by the way. This is not in the scripture written, but this is the implication of that. And you start changing your behavior now that no. At least in India there used to be a TV channel, right, where there used to be all these family serials, the family feuds between whatever, mother-in-law especially, and the daughter-in-law, the famous relationship, right, from our Indian culture. So those are the serials we used to watch. Now there are some movies. Now movies are full of nowadays, of course, the violence and all those kind of negative things which I do not need in my life. This is how I spent my life so far. But now I started changing my behavior. Maybe I watch a video or two and then I suddenly realize, no, I must stop now. Because otherwise there's the infinite scrolling on the right hand side. They have provided you very conveniently using machine learning algorithms. Because they're studying your brain, by the way, if you don't know. They know about your brain more than you do. And nowadays they know about everything about us than we do about ourselves. That's called digital profile. They are building about us. Tremendous amount of data these companies are collecting, and privacy has become a big joke anyway. Different topic. Whole point is Suvicharana. Suvicharana, start changing your behavior. And Tukaram Maharaj has shared a beautiful, a very effective way where he is saying, Indriyansa Jaya, control your senses. What happens? Vasanensa Kshaya. That Kshaya word is very important. If you don't know the meaning of that, it is called as a decay. You understand the isotopes? We studied isotopes decay over the period of time. So similarly, if I used to spend 4 hours watching that nonsense on social media, today I control my sense and I decide from today onwards, I will only watch 3 hours. Suddenly you can't stop, because now, unfortunately, we have trained our mind and we have let it free to do whatever it wants to do so far. But now you say no. Indriyatsa Jaya, you start controlling your senses. Then slowly the 3 hours become 2 hours, 2 hours becomes 1 hour. Then you only occasionally watch. Why? You also watch now Kirtan on the YouTube. Because it's a technology. It all depends how you use it. There are spiritual discourses which are available on YouTube. So you can make a beautiful use of technology today. But this is the changing behavior. And then you slowly, gradually, without you knowing, you are entering the third stage called Tanumanasi. Tanumanasi loosely translates into a perfect harmony of what I am learning and my action, how I behave. Because in the second stage, there was a constant struggle and a fight in my own mind, because the scriptures I am studying, these discourses, kind of today's discourses, spiritual discourses, everything is telling me to do certain things and not doing certain things, what we call do's and don'ts, right? Vidhi and the nishedh, what is called in Shastra. But my mind wasn't ready for it, because I trained my mind totally with all the contradictions to the spiritual path. So that was more or less second stage, or the beginning of the third stage. But as you enter the third stage, and as the third stage matures, then what happens? Again, there is a beautiful verse from Dnyanachay. It says, Arjuna samatva chitta se, techi sar jana yoga se, jetha mana ani buddhi se aikya athi. I know there are some non-Marathi people here. Even for Marathi people, this is not easy to understand. It's Marathi from 1000 years back, Dnyanachay, right? The meaning is, Lord Krishna is saying to Arjuna, samatva chitta se. Chitta is our mind, let's say, antakarana. There are 4 roles our antakarana always play. One is called manu, buddhi, chitta and ahankar. Loosely translates into mind, intellect, ego, etc. So Lord is saying, there is a perfect harmony and a balance between what? Arjuna samatva chitta se. Techi sar jana yoga se. Dnyanachay Maharaj is saying it is the essence of yoga. It is so important. What? Jetha mana and buddhi se aikyati. Where your mind and intellect is in complete agreement, which was not the case in the earlier stage. In earlier stage, what was happening? I was reading Bhagavad Gita. I was reading Upanishads. I was listening to spiritual discourses. I was reading Dasbodh. I was reading Dnyaneshwari. All the scriptures were telling me to do certain things and not to do certain things, but my mind wasn't ready. So there was a constant fight, constant struggle. Why I am describing all these things in so much detail? As I said, knowingly or unknowingly, a true, honest spiritual seeker goes through all the stages. And I can see some nodding there, because all of us experience all this. If you are genuinely pursuing the spiritual goal, you will definitely go through the stages. Because we ourselves have trained our mind with such a contradictory practices that there is going to be a fight now. Because your mind is going to, your intellect is going to reject. So mind, I don't have enough time to explain the role of a mind, but quickly, mind plays a bidirectional role. What I mean by bidirectional? Our intellect makes a decision, right? And that whatever the decision has been made by our intellect called buddhi, that decision is conveyed to our senses through mind. But when I am reading Bhagavad Gita, I am trying to send a different signal to my intellect. That signal is also being passed through mind actually. So mind plays a bidirectional role. It is conveying the decisions of our intellect to our senses, what is called Indriya, the Jnanendriya, the Karmendriya, mainly the Karmendriya, right? And through Jnanendriya we are acquiring the knowledge that is also being sent to the intellect. But there is a struggle between, because what I am reading is not what I feel like doing it. And that stage is now past. And so we progress from Shubhecha, Suvicharana, we are in Tanumanasi. And Tanumanasi, when you reach this perfect harmony and imbalance. Now there is no fight because, for example, we were talking about watching YouTube mindlessly, right, for hours together. And initially, I had to artificially control my mind. Don't do it. Because what you are watching is completely contradictory to all the spiritual practices. Because it's full of hatred, it's full of violence, it's full of jealousy. That is what the story is all about in most of the movies nowadays. And most of the whatever the content on the social media you watch or read. So initially I had to control my mind, but the stage now we are in, I don't even feel like watching. Now I have now perfected, I am now at the end of the 4th stage and ready to enter the 5th stage now. So this not feeling like is very important because see, nobody is watching over me, nobody is telling me, all of us are adults here. Nobody is going to tell me that you should watch YouTube for so many hours and you shouldn't watch this. And by the way, I am not singling out YouTube. You might feel like that because I am constantly using that word. Let's call it a social media, which is the worst enemy right now for human being. And this is I think if you don't use it properly, the worst invention of modern science. Because without you knowing, it starts using you, by the way. Because I get so used to simply picking up the phone for no reason. Nobody has called me. There is not even a notification. क्या करना है, उठाओ phone, start scrolling. And I jokingly say that your thumb one day will disappear, but scrolling will not stop because there is unending scrolling there. These mindless things we do, they are all stopped. So Shubhecha, Suvicharana, Tanu Manasi. So what happens after this stage? You enter the 4th stage, which is called Sattvapatti. Sattvapatti basically means Sattva Guna. All of you understand? Sattva Guna, Rajo Guna, Tamo Guna. So Sattva Guna is a beautiful gift which we get in the 4th stage. And Sattva Guna is an absolute must if you want to make spiritual progress. Again, Bhagavad Gita says, Sattvat Sanjayate Dhyanam. And when I say, it is the dominance of Sattva Guna in your heart, by the way. It doesn't mean there is no Rajo Guna or Tamo Guna. Tamo Guna is also important, Rajo Guna is also important for us. For example, you won't be able to even fall asleep unless and until you have Sattva Guna or you attend spiritual discourses. That was a joke, so I waited for a moment. The best place to get sleep is spiritual discourse, they say actually. You don't even need a sleeping pill. Anyway, that was a joke. My whole point was, Tamoguna is required, otherwise you can't fall asleep. And similarly, Rajoguna is also required. I am talking with the help of Rajoguna. So point is, all 3 gunas are required, but I should be using them. Instead, they use me, just like the smartphone. So, Sattva Guna. So that is the stage where it is Sattva Guna is dominating my heart. Sattva Guna is dominating my actions, my karma. Sattva Guna is dominating all my thoughts. It is extremely important because that will pave the way for the next thing. And if I am held back because of the Rajogun and the Tamogun, then that's not going to make any further progress. So this is why Shubhecha, Suvicharana, Tanu Manasi, Sattvapatti. I have to kind of rush through it in the interest of time. Only 5 minutes are left. Next one is Asau Sakti. Asau Sakti again loosely translates as complete Vairagya.
We can go up to about 5:15.
Okay. We'll have to leave some time for question answers as well. So Asau Sakti. Asau Sakti loosely translates as renunciation, Vairagya, etc. And Vairagya is the most beautiful thing, I tell you. We have been not properly trained what Vairagya means, because the moment we hear Vairagya, especially family people like you and me, we are like, oh my God, that's not something, I should be even thinking about. That's something reserved for sannyasis and all that. Those people, those saffron-clad people. Who told you? Who told you? If you are thinking like that and still you are pursuing spiritualism, then only God can help you. No one else. And I will explain you why I say this. There is another beautiful verse that comes from Yoga Vasishta, the same book we are referring to. What is that verse? The verse is Na moksho navasa prushte patale nacha bhutale. Listen to it attentively. You will understand. Sanskrit is not that difficult. Na moksho prushte patale nacha bhutale. Moksha, the very final destination they are talking about, self-realization. What is it exactly? Where is it? Not here, not there. Na moksha, na pushte patale, na cha bhutale, sarvasha sankshayo cheta, moksha itya vidhiyate. Sarvasha, all your desires. When there is a complete eradication of all your desires, guess what? That is what moksha is. Moksha is not a package that is going to be delivered by Amazon at your doorsteps one fine day. You open in Yoga Upanishad, they are saying the very same thing. Yesterday I mentioned about it, Kathopanishad. What is that verse? Yada sarve pramuchyante kama yasya hridishritaha atha martyo amruto bhavati atra brahma samashvite. Atha martyo amruto bhavati tamaso ma jyotirgamaya mrutyurma amrutam gavya. That is what we are talking about. When you become amruta, when you realize yourself true nature, only then. Second verse says, only then. But when? Jada sarve pramuchyante. All those desires which are housed in my mind, I have to get rid of it. I have to. But that doesn't mean running away from duty. We already talked about it at the beginning. So that is exactly what that verse is telling you. Karmanyevadhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana. Doing all your duties, fulfilling all your duties with the best of your abilities, but without expecting the fruit of it. That is called Sarvasha Samkshayo Cheta. Moksha Itya Vidhiyate is what Yoga Vasishta is telling. That is very much what the moksha means. And that is the stage we are talking about right now. Asamsakti. So again, one more time. Shubhecha, Suvicharana, Tanumanasi, Sattvapatti, Asamsakti. And when all these stages are complete, then you very slowly enter into what is called as the sixth stage, called as Padartha Bhavini. Padartha Bhavini. There are two words, Padartha and Abhavini. So again it loosely translates into the absence of things around, basically. So now we are essentially talking about a mature stage of your dhyana or meditation and progressing towards samadhi. Because when you sit down and you meditate and when you progress in the meditation, when you reach this stage, by the way, these are all the preconditions. You have to be at that mature stage. Otherwise, a lot of people, they think, oh, I can meditate from day one. Of course, you start meditating from day one, but it is not going to work unless and until you qualify yourself with all these things. That's called adhikar. And as I said in the beginning, everybody is adhikari here. Adhikari of what? To earn the adhikar itself. Not of the self-realization. That is a long way to go. But the adhikar, if you qualify for it, then it is not that far, by the way. So point is, Padartha Bhavini. So what happens is when you are meditating, when again, I will only talk about, in the interest of time, the last three stages called Dharana, Dhyana and Samadhi. So let's assume we are in somewhere in that region of Dharana and somewhere in the boundary of Dhyana. So what happens is you start losing the awareness of your physical body. So today morning there was another discourse we had and the topic was Panchakosha, and that is what essentially we talked about. How to do the niras of our Panchakosh, Annamay Kosh, Pranamay Kosh, Manomay Kosh, Vijnanamay Kosh, Anandamay Kosh. How do you transcend? Niras basically means how do you transcend all this? So when you come to a certain stage, you start losing the awareness of your physical body. You start losing the awareness of the time. You don't remember that I started meditating at 4 o'clock, maybe now it's 4:30, 5 o'clock. You lose all that sense. That is the stage we are talking about, padartha bhavini. And also, there's another word, when your meditation is over, you come out of it, that meditative stage, that is called vyuthana in Shastra. There's another beautiful reasoning behind it, why somebody comes out of a meditation. And I'll quickly just give you a glimpse, but don't have time to explain. It's called prarabdha. The very prarabdha that wakes you up in the morning every day. Try that one day, like today, like Sunday, right? When you don't have office, don't put on any alarm. Ensure that there is no disturbance, no sound whatsoever. You still wake up. Who wakes you up? It is your prarabdha. And sometimes when you go to bed and you wonder, oh my God, it's 10 p.m. I should go to bed. I have an early morning meeting. It's 11 p.m. I'm still awake. Happens with you?
Yeah.
Who is keeping you awake? It is your prarabdha again. Because whatever the bhog of that day are not complete, you still have to you still have to pay that duty, basically, sort of. Anyway, so padartha bhavini, that's what happens. When you come out of that meditative stage, even if you are now in a waking state, you still lose the sight and a situational awareness, a spatial awareness. That's called the stage of padartha bhavini. And the last stage we'll talk about it, and then we'll stop here, which is called as turyaga. Turyaga is the last stage. Now, being the last stage, there is nothing beyond. And all of us know only 3 stages, or 3, it's called stages anyway, which are called waking stage, a sleeping stage, and the dream stage, right? All of us experience that. All of us go through these 3 stages in a round-robin fashion on a daily basis. And the beauty is you are only in one of these stages at any given point of time. Which basically means if you are in a waking state, which I believe you are today, I always say that is my shraddha, all of you are in a waking state right now. That means you are not sleeping and you are not dreaming also. But if you are sleeping, then you are not waking or you are not dreaming. And if you are dreaming, same thing. So that is called, these 3 things are mutually exclusive to each other. And that is in Shastra called as Vyatirek. All these 3 things, they are mutually exclusive, right? I just explained. It's not a rocket science, we know that. But there is a 4th stage which we are talking about called Turyada. Turyada basically means Dnyana. Dnyana means what I explained in the beginning, and in that Dnyana exists in all these 3 states, if not stages, we call states. Waking state, obviously we know because we are constantly acquiring knowledge anyway, right? Dreaming, obviously there is a Dhyana. But even in a deep sleep, there is a Dhyana. So in Shastra, if I may use that word, it is called Anvaya. I said these 3 states, they have Vyatirek of each other, which is called a mutual exclusivity. But Jnana, so there exists no time, there exists no place where there is no Jnana. And that Jnana, which is the formless and the attributeless, the Nirguna Nirakar, is, what are these beautiful idols represent? Lord Rama and Lord Krishna, Lord Shiva, Lord Ganpati, Ganesha, etc. This is the very essence of it. But because we are not today ready and qualified enough to go and experience that formless and attributeless, we have to worship somebody with form and attribute. But God is everywhere. We know that He is omnipresent, He is omniscient. Then why do we come to the temple? Because to experience that only. We have to start here. So do come to temple, do continue our worship, and I wish all of you good luck to progress on your spiritual journey and cross these stages as fast as you can. And I request that at the feet of my Sadguru. With that, I stop here today and remember my Sadguru again. Shri Sadgurunath Maharaj ki Jai. Jai Jai Raghuveer Samarth.